Hello guys, my name is Michael, and today we are going to move to properties. But before we do this, we can check a little bit again about what we learned so far. So basically we are learning about these functions at the beginning. So we said that we can create an adjustment with this function by passing those 6 values which set for us the value lower, upper, step increment, page increment and page size. We learned that after we set this, we can call all these functions or to make changes. Maybe if you want to change only the upper, you call this function. Maybe you want to change the step increment, you will call only this function, and so on. And later we'll learn about the clamp page and about the adjustment configurator. Here, as you can see, as you already know, we can set all these things at once, so that we do not need to call these things all of them, all these 6 functions. If you want to change all of them at once, then here is a function which we needed. And then of course we have those getter function which gets information about things which we are setting. So basically, let's go back. We have the adjustment here, we create these values here, and then we are creating this adjustment, we are passing these values here, and after that we are printing these values. So this means we have 50, 0, 100, 110, 0. This is 50, 0, 100, 110, 0. So this is basically what creates this function. The same thing was said if, for example, we want to create to make some changes to this adjustment. I'll just pass here 0. So let's say we were creating this adjustment with 0 information. Once that we call all these functions, then we basically change every information, and as you can see here, the value now of the adjustment is 0. Of the value of the value now is 0 here, and should be not 0, it should be 50. Why that happens? Well, I don't know. I'm not sure why it happens that once that we set the value of the adjustment with the value which we have here, it is passing basically 0. It should be 50, but as you can see, it is a thing which it happens. So we were creating the adjustment, and then we set the lower value, set the value to 50, set the lower to 0, set the upper to 100, step increment to 1, page increment to 10, and page size to 0. So basically we have 50, 0, 100, 1, 10, and 0. What exactly happens here? We have the value of 0 here when it should be 50. Why does happen? I don't know. I don't know why you cannot set this value, and this happens maybe let me comment this part here. If I'm calling now the configure function with the adjustment, it will be set to 50. You see, it works. So this means if you call this function, you can change all these values to the values which you have them, but if you call them independently, then the set value does not apply to the adjustment. Why it happens, I don't know. It has to be somehow to do with the fact that we are passing here 0, because let me show you something. Let me go back. Let us put again the values here. Sorry, lower, upper step increment, page increment, and page size. Yes, page size. Okay, so now let's change the value of the adjustment with 20. So we are creating here, let me print it so that you understand it better before. So we are creating another adjustment with these values, and then we are setting the value of the adjustment now, this time to 20. Before was 50. What the heck? Okay, here it's missing this thing, the tab. Okay, so watch, the value was 50 and now the value is 20. You see, so basically it happens something here which I cannot understand. I cannot explain you why, but I can tell you, be careful when you work with adjustment, because if you create a newly empty adjustment with the values 0, you cannot set the values later, at least the value you cannot set it, or if you try to set it, it goes back to 0. It's not changing. Why? I'm not sure. 0, I put in now 0 here, and then yeah, I'll use the value because we are not using it. Let me comment it. And now you see we have 20. So I cannot explain why it happens. I cannot. Why if I'm passing here 0 and I'm passing here 20, it works fine. But if we are working with a variable, somehow, if you know an explanation, please leave in a comment, because I really don't understand why. I mean, I said put a value of 50 here, and then later I don't need the value to be 50, so I need to have it to 20, and works fine. But if I change the value to 50, if the initial value was 0, it should be 50, and it is, as you can see. Why this thing happens? I mean, it's hard to understand why these things happen. You see, 0, 0, 0, 0, and 0. We are printing all of them to 0. I mean, we are printing, so we are creating the adjustment with all its values set to 0, and after we create this one, we are basically setting the values, all of them, to new values, and bam, the value is 0. You see, it doesn't change. Maybe it's a bug, maybe I do something wrong here. I cannot explain you. If you find an explanation for this, just let me know. I always update, I always create the adjustment here with some values which I created them myself. I'm not just passing random numbers, because you see what happens. You see what happens if you make this change. I mean, if you let it like this, where both the values are set, you see it works fine. If you set the value to 20 and then you pass the new value, it will be 20, so it works fine. But if you set here 0 only, it works also fine. You see, 20. But if you work only with zeros, you see, the value is 0. But it happens only to the value, you see. The only thing which doesn't change is the value. Everything else is changed. So I really don't know why. Let me let me set the value at the last thing here. Let's see what happens. The value is 20. Okay, let me put the values back. Value, lower, upper, step, page increment, and page size. Page size. So what did we change now? We are creating 6 variables, we are defining them, and then we pass them as arguments to this adjustment, so that we create an adjustment with these values. We are printing these values. After we are, or at least we are printing this value only, because we are interested only in this value. Now that we're printing this value, we said value should be now 20. All of those things should be staying the same. And now what I basically changed, I changed the way how I'm creating the adjustment. This means I'm setting lower, upper, step on those pages first, and the value last one. And the value, as you can see, was 50, and now it's 20. So what's the story then here? I mean, what exactly happens here, and why I hate this thing. You see, the value is 20. Why is not 0? This is a thing which I not understand. You see, I'm just moving this one here and compile it. Okay, we have here okay, so I just moved the set value from down to up here, and we have 0. You see, this is what I want to talk to you. So I hope you understand that there are some different things here. The value does not get set if you set first the value and then the lower, upper, and so on. So basically what I'm understanding here, the way the program looks like, it is that we need to set at least lower and upper. I think maybe if I move this part here, it works fine, because I think it has to do with upper somehow. Yes, you see, works fine. So just remember, it is important the way how you create these things, because the way how you create them is the way how takes place those changes. Now let's move to a new thing here. We don't need this part anymore. So we said this happens if we make some changes, only 1 or 2 or maybe 3, but not all of them, or whatever. If you need to change all of this, then there is another function which is called a GTK Adjustment Configure. So basically it's the same story. We have set them to 0, we are printing the value, and then we create the adjustment, and then we print the values again. As you can see, here we have 0, and this time works fine. Working with configure works fine. Sets the value to 50, and we can get this value of 50 when we try to print it, which works fine. One thing which you need to remember, let me remove this part because we don't need it anymore. Let me remove this part too, because we don't need them anymore also. One thing which you need to remember is that this function does not create an adjustment. This function, how the name itself says configure the adjustment, it doesn't create. Let's see what the manual says. Let's go back a little bit to the configure, and says set all properties of the adjustment as once. So this means those properties had to be there. Use this function to avoid modulo emission of the change. So basically this is a setter function, okay? It's not a function which creates something. Let me show you. You see, we are creating an adjustment, then we set the values through configure a function. If I comment this call here, which probably I saw a couple of days that someone tried to do this and had some problems. Now let me show you something. I have a smart compiler. I love GTK GCC. Watch. Adjustment is used uninitialized in this function. Let me try to compile this thing. Let me see something. wrong.c. Okay, save the file. I will go into compile it. I just need this. I don't want to type again. So wrong c -o wrong c. Okay, so let's give it a name of wrong. It's compiled fine because the flags are off, and let's work with the wrong one. Whoa, you see this? I just compiled fine my program calling GCC on this code here. We got no error, we got no warning, we got nothing, and after we are running the program which compiled fine, then the function itself says assertion GTK's adjustment failed. Of course it failed because we didn't create an adjustment. So basically we are trying to work with the dead pointer. Okay, the way how the error or the warning here looks like, you should understand that this part here, GTK is adjustment, means that this macro checks if this adjustment, it's really an adjustment and it's not just a pointer. So this basically, when you see warning like this here, GTK is label or something, and then here is your label and set failed. This means your label here is not a label, it's just maybe you passed a pointer without pointing it to valid function which creates that label. In this case our adjustment, you see. So we were not creating this adjustment. This I wanted to show you. This is a thing which I forgot in the last video, so these things I wanted to show you in this video. So just be careful about these things, and just try to understand what you are trying to do. Once that you know, then it's better for you. So basically here I saved you from a lot of mistakes. Just remember, here it shows you your function, and then the assertion said it fails where here is the macro which checks this thing, checks your adjustment, and says, is this adjustment an adjustment? No, it's not, it failed, so it's not. So this means something you did wrong. Of course we did something wrong. We already knew here, because if you compile your program with your compiler flags turned on, like me, I have a lot of them. I have C18 W pendantic error, wall, VOL, V extra error, strict prototypes, missing prototypes. Let me go a little bit back here. Missing prototypes, misleading indentation, duplicate condition, wall style definition, conversion, shadow, float equivalent. So you see how many flags do I have here? Well, I have them all just to be sure when I make a mistake that the compiler informs me about this mistake. So basically here is the problem. We're trying to call a function by passing a value which is not initialized, like it says here, which is the adjustment, of course, because I comment out. Now works fine. This means our program works fine and prints those values. If we go back to our terminal and we do the same thing here, you see I remove this part, I save it and compile it again, and now when I run it, works perfect. You see? Well, that's the story with the adjustment new. What means this, and don't think that if you just call this function passing your adjustment, then will basically do the job for you like this one here. No, it doesn't. Okay, so that being said, I will stop now the video because it is enough information for now, and we're going to talk about the problem in the next video, which is also I have a very interesting thing for you to show you, another things which the documentation doesn't really talk about it. Okay, thank you guys for watching. If you like it, please subscribe, share with your friends, and until next time, see you guys.